well done. Puede haber Pakowski, centra. Back to make the finish. And Riga lead.
Welcome to Latvian Football Podcast, where today we're going to talk about the qualification round 3 of the UEFA Conference League, which also happened to be the final qualification round for the remaining Latvian teams. We're also going to catch up on the Latvian Cup, which is now entering semifinals, and see what happened in Virsliga since we last spoke about Virsliga as well, which has been 4 rounds now. So generally very much a catch up, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, kind of an episode before we resume our normal programming with more Virsliga-centric content.
Yeah, exactly. And quite some time has passed, specifically considering Virsliga. The major reason for that is, of course, the European competitions, which we will, of course, start with discussing.
We're just so excited for Europe that Virsliga just has to take a backseat for a little bit.
Exactly, and I think it's pretty much how it is every year. Everyone's waiting for the European competitions because that's like the big one to compare where our clubs really stand at and what's the level. And especially if you have some teams like Riga and RFS who actually have they're looking promising to qualify maybe. Then yeah, it's a big deal, and sort of anything else gets put into the background. And yeah, speaking of the European Conference League, specifically, only 2 teams were left from Latvia in the qualification round 3. One had a much tougher opponent than the other, well, at least on paper. It was Riga and Valmiera competing against Twente and Partizani. And I guess we'll start with Riga, going against a big club from Netherlands, Eredivisie, Twente, which is maybe not so full of titles, but I think it's full of history. Some relative drama in like the past 10 years. They've been, I think, relegated and then went back up. Had some financial problems, but now they're sort of back at the top, playing good football. And came up against Riga, our own team, I'd say the grand team of Latvia. And of course, it was already a hard task to do good against them. And I think no one was really expecting us to go through, which is, I guess, good in a way because you can't really get disappointed. But I'd say the overall feeling after the both matches, which in aggregate ended 5-0, I wouldn't say it's that bad. Of course, the result doesn't look too good, but the performance, especially in the second match, can't really put any fault or blame on Riga players or coach or anything because they did what they could, and just unfortunate, but it's just a logical result in the end. 5-0.
Yeah, the first game, Twente dominated throughout. There's, I think, no two ways about it. Even looking at the stats, that shows a stark contrast between the two teams at that point in time, with Twente keeping the ball 71% of the time, when Riga only 29%. Twente producing 25 shots, 11 on target versus 7 and 3 for Riga. And this was in the Netherlands. This was in Enschede. And still, only 2-0 at that point. 1 goal in each half. 11th minute and 67th. And Riga struggled, I think, objectively. They didn't really challenge Twente. But in the second game, which weirdly ended 3-0, but that's a little bit against the grain of the play, still, yeah, of course, Twente the stronger team, 62% possession, Riga now at 38%, but in terms of danger on goal, Twente 5 shots on target, 3 of which went in. Riga 3 shots on target, none of which gone in. And I agree, this 3-0, I mean, maybe the 2-0 in the first leg is fine. 3-0 in second leg is not representative of the game. Riga really stepped up, and of course, yeah, maybe the inconsistent level of experience or composure under pressure or whatever is that the players experience during these larger, kind of more unusual for people playing in Latvia level of games, but they did well, and they did press Twente at parts of the game, I think, quite heavily, and they played a very physical, very sharp match, and it's unfortunate that they didn't even score in the end. A little bit of a consolation goal, participation prize. But overall, yeah, of course, Twente. We didn't really think Riga has a chance, and I mean that's fair enough. Twente, team from the Netherlands, top 5 league in Europe. I mean, it's just games like this. You just show up and you enjoy football, which lots of people did, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, I think here in Latvia we're slowly getting used to these games because, well, as you said, the first game, fair enough, 2-0 was a normal result to come out of the game. Could have been worse, but 2-0 sort of still had some hope, at least in us. And yeah, the second game, of course, for Latvia, it's a big day, celebration of football festival, as we've said it a lot. It was a full stadium, well, as full as it can be, at least. I think 6,500 people, something like that. And even though people knew there's tiny chance of us getting through, but yeah, I think we really surprised them. The first half was basically dominated by us. I would say we started well really active. It hadn't even been a minute, and we already had a corner kick and a relatively dangerous shot on target, um, which just shows that the team was ready for the game and the plan was there. And even with some, I'd say for me, it was just some interesting change to the squad. Jojic was not available, and Gom went into the central midfield role, and Musa in the center back. Usually it's the other way around if Musa plays, and I think this is something that tactically hasn't really been sort of well developed because I think it was the only like maybe second or third game this season where Ngom and El Bashir Ngom went into the central midfield role, but even there he just dominated it, and there was also no Ngonda, which is also a big loss for Riga. Just a top class left back, but Aurelia sort of played this left wing back role, and he actually did well. So even that can, in mind, yeah, we did incredible. We just pressed them, as you said, a lot of chances, but just couldn't get the ball into the net. We had a lot of chances, and even the stats are not well. Shot wise, the stats are quite fair, but there was a lot of chances which didn't really end up in a shot, but sort of these sort of sharp passes, like parallel to the goal line, and one if someone tapped it in, it would have been a goal. But of course, there was no shot, and that's not recorded. So even the stats are not that representative, of course. But yeah, and I think this just shows the different levels of the teams because we were better, but Twente just as a team defended well, didn't concede, sort of got over this pressure from us, and then it got harder for us because we had more pressure to go forward, and they sort of found these well, not even holes in our defense. It just this, the first goal they scored was just an incredible shot, unsavable. It seemed like it was going to go over, but then it dips a bit against the post and in. Just yeah, very good. And I would say that even the Twente is just better as a team. I think one of the well, journalists said it or someone that I think individually we even have some better players than any player in Twente, for example. So Aurelio individually is probably better than anyone in Twente, maybe Peña as well. But as a team, we're just not that experienced, and especially in these big matches, which just shows because, yeah, as a team, we lost, but then individually, a lot of great performances, and everyone played quite well. It's just the difference of the base levels, I would say. On our day, we could have won, but out of 10 games of Riga versus Twente, they probably win like 8 or 9. And yeah, it's just fair enough. But at least, well, Riga produced a lot of great emotions in this European season. It was tough going against Twente, and at least they got more experience in these sort of matches. And well, I would feel quite confident if they manage to win Virsliga and then go through the Champions League path. They should go into the groups, especially if Stipic stays and like the backbone of the squad also stays, then it should be very doable. But I guess that's what people think a lot after these European competitions. But then next year comes and it's probably usually a different picture. But we'll see. Overall, yeah, 5-0 not really that representative of the two games. However, fair and understandable. Just two different levels of teams. Though Riga showed their spirit and at least some produced some great moments, emotions. And what more can we really ask?
They did not disappoint at home, result notwithstanding. I mean, one can dream, one can hope, but, as you said, when David meets Goliath 8, 9 times out of 10, it's Goliath who ends up winning. And it was just a lovely night. Lots of Dutch fans showed up, I think around 1,000, if I'm not mistaken. They had a lovely time in the Old Town, from what I've seen. Then they marched on the Skonto Stadium, singing. It's again, last year RFS bringing all these teams, and this phrase keeps popping up that the one, whichever one of our teams happens to be playing one of these, how to put it, even, let's say, old European country football culture teams, then this phrase comes up that we're bringing the football culture to Riga, to Latvia. And I mean, this was the case as well. People singing, people supporting their team. It's wonderful. About next year, I mean, Stipic got excited. That's what he said as well. He said that if he's around next year, then he guarantees.
He promised
that he promised that they'll go through to the group stages, which is, I think it. I mean, maybe overthinking it, but to me, this sort of says a couple of interesting things. One is that this isn't the first time where he, in the recent past, where he brought up this concept, which isn't new to anyone who knows anything about Riga FC. So the concept being that unless he wins the Virsliga, he loses his job. And to remind our listeners, Riga FC are yet to have a coach who finished the season with the team. Same coach who started the season. Stipic thus far, I think, is doing really exceptionally well. So the idea there being that if he wins the Virsliga, he keeps his job, and then they can go through the champions path, which is looking at what Valmiera was dealing with this season, I mean, there's no argument. It's undisputably a much, much easier path to get into the group stages. What happens if they don't win the league? I mean, it would be a shame to lose Stipic on such a trivial matter, I would think. But I mean, we'll see, I guess. It's just good to see how his statements about going from I want to write history with Riga in Europe to Conference League is a hobby and Virsliga is the center of attention, to if we go through the champions path, then we'll be in the group stages next year. How these statements evolved. But such is Riga FC.
I think if they fire him there, I don't know what's wrong with them. By now, they should have realized where they're going wrong with the changing coaches. It worked maybe like 3 years, but even then, there was Konyevs who pretty much always took over whenever a coach got fired or left, and then there was at least some sort of stability and.
Well, now there's Blanks.
Yeah, but he's always been there since the start, but he's never been like the main coach, and I don't think that's a role he wants. Well, maybe, who knows? But yeah, also a good point that he's always there, so it's not like everything changes, but still, they're playing well, and
I don't know. I mean, how do you? I don't even want to get into the mind of the owner of Riga FC. some Russian millionaire, but you're spending so much money on this club, whatever the reason, wink wink. But then, like, what's with the attention deficit disorder, you know? Why can't you obviously, if a coach is failing, by all means, swap the coach. If a player is underperforming, by all means, find someone else. But last season was Perkovic, right? He was doing really well as well, and he got sacked. Stipic is doing exceptional job, not just in terms of results, but also in terms of his charisma and how he's, building up this quote-unquote legacy. And clearly someone lit a fire under his chair the moment he said that he wants to write history in Europe with Riga FC. I just don't understand what's going on. And as you said, what's going on in those minds and what's the end game here? You just want to burn money for no reason? I mean, there's other ways to do that.
I wouldn't be that sure about the burning under the chair. I think Stipic, even earlier this season, has been very sort of random and different in what he says. At one point, he's sort of very grounded, realistic, and the next moment, he's very sort of hopeful, not so humble, and just very confident. I think he's just maybe playing some sort of mind games, or maybe he's just that kind of a person, very maybe explosive and rash. But well, if it is far under the chair, then really, what are they doing in the management of the club? But I hope by now they would have learned.
Yeah. Well, in any case, Riga did not disappoint in Euro Cups this year, just poor luck with the draw. Valmiera, on the other hand, is a bit of a different story.
Very disappointing. Just I hate the fact that in the first match they scored first and went 1-0 up and gave us false hope, because the reality was they could have gotten through. They really could have, but they've lately been playing just so underwhelming, both in Virsliga Cup as well and European competitions. So they faced Partizani from Albania, 2 games aggregate 3-1. Well, 1-3. They lost. First game in Riga in Skonto Stadium, lost 1-2, despite going up 1-0. And then second game, lost 1-0. But it's just so disappointing, because the first game in Skonto, as I said, they went up, and the first half they were actually dominating. They were the better team. Just simply, they were the better team. And when they came out for the second half, I don't know what happened. They just sat back so much and started playing awfully, and they pretty much just made 2 mistakes, conceded 2 goals, and that's it. Even in the second half, they had some chances, but yeah, the 2 mistakes from, I think it was Vapes, and then also sort of slipped from a long shot, which was easily savable, but he slipped and couldn't get to the ball, and then lost 2-1. Just very disappointing, and just sad to see what has happened to Valmiera overall. But I think we've discussed that quite a lot. But yeah, the second game lost 1-0. I think that they conceded a penalty, which I don't know if it was that fair of a penalty. Well, there was definitely a kick, but they could move. The ref could have also not given the penalty. But then in the second half, they had so many chances, and it's just so disappointing to see. They just can't finish their chances. They're making chances, but just can't finish. Diop was especially just so bad again, as he was against Olympia in Valmiera. Just I think he missed sort of an empty net and played too individually where he shouldn't have, and just overall, just sad. And this game started, the second game, and Valmiera had more chances than Riga theoretically to go through. One to the first game, the second game started hour after Riga's game started. I even put on during the second half of Riga's match their game, but then they conceded this penalty, and then I realized, well, that's it. That it's over for both teams, and I just turned it off. But just disappointing, because they could have done better, of course, if they kept all the players. This Khan's been saying, man, Metta, Jalisco, whoever, of course they would have gone through, or at least had much higher chance. But even now they could have, and they didn't, and it just shows that it's going wrong in Valmiera. Something's off. The players are just not good enough, and it seems that it's just a bit of a mess at the club at the moment.
It feels like a broken record this season, where, well, if Valmiera had their players from last season, then they would have done this or that or the other thing. And yet, I have to remind myself, and I have said this before, that Valmiera with all their players last season didn't do better. And if we're looking at progression, they did worse in Europe. So another thing that pops to mind was I genuinely don't know what to fully make of it, and if how much of what's going on is to do with that. Remember this season, at the very, very beginning, when Tamas Pertia started setting up a shop in Liepaja, and in the beginning Valmiera still wasn't terrible. Kalns was throwing pot shots at him about, well, Liepaja is playing as bad as Daugavpils or whatever, right? And Tamas replied something. He didn't let himself be provoked, but he replied something that at the time seemed a little bit, well, not really petty, but maybe a little bit, I don't know, something along those lines. What he said was that, well, it's easy to win the league when you have a team that's already pre-assembled and gelled and everything's working great, right? And back then we looked at it and was like, well, I mean, but you never won the league, so how much credibility such a statement can have? And then, okay, Valmiera started making the team with new players to replace the ones they lost, and now it's garbage, for lack of a better term. So then, was Pertiag right? Is Kalns just not that good of a manager, and he just managed to give a bit of a boost to the team that Pertiag built to win the league last season? And now that he has the reins and is also participating in recruiting players and building a team, not from scratch, but from, halfway down, he's just unable to do so?
I think it's a good point that Pertti has never won Virsliga, and that's why it's not that credible coming from him. But it feels like they're just a very good duo, but not just together. I think every team should appoint Tamas, let him sort of build it, and then bring in Kalns to get them over the line. Because it feels like maybe, well, it's only theoretical, but it feels like Tamas Boperti could be the sort of coach who's very demanding, very harsh, makes them run a lot, and it's all good, but maybe it sort of doesn't get maybe the vibes or the chemistry in the team. But then Kalns comes in, he's sort of a more friendly coach, whatever, and then maybe he does take these players over the line. It could be the case, but then again, he has been a bit unfortunate this season as well, I think, because they weren't playing that bad as long as they had Gay and Varslavans, a lot of injuries, and then Jalisco went, and also some players as Kapic coming in, playing 2 or 3 games, and then just being thrown to Lechia Gdańsk, and he hasn't really had anything to work with because he pretty much started the preseason with one team, and then now it's a completely different team. Well, not completely, but quite a different team, and I'd say it's hard to assess, and maybe a bit unfair to assess yet, whether that was the case and he's not that good of a coach, but still, it's just it's unfortunate, and of course, it's not playing in his favor. But I feel like he's a good coach, but just something is off in Valmiera overall, I'd say, this season.
The question isn't really whether he's a good coach or not, is whether he's good enough.
Yeah.
And okay, whilst we can't say about him, Valmiera as a team are absolutely, certainly, without a doubt, not good enough this year. And their recent results, even in the Latvian Cup, very much support this and don't give much hope for a bright end of season for the Valmiera side.
Yeah, exactly. It's even tough to describe. It's just they were good and they're not, and then everything's sort of going downhill for Valmiera.
It's a little annoying.
Yeah,
And it's super annoying on top that we we could have gone into top 33 in the UEFA rankings, which would give us a place in the Europa League, which would be fantastic. Currently, as I'm looking at this, we're recording on 24th of August, Latvia is number 34. And this year's result in terms of coefficient are the worst ones in the past 4 years, if we're not counting the 18-19, I think, season. Yeah, 18-19 season, Latvia only got 1.375 towards the coefficient. Next year, 2.625. Last year, 2.75. This year, 1.625. So we'll just have to wait another year to try to break into top 33 and hope that Riga or RFS make it to the group stages and the runner-up makes it, as far as possible and we we take this next step. It's just, I think we're ready. I think the league is ready. Valmiera notwithstanding, it's time to step into top 33 and start making our way up there.
I do agree. Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. Then again, I think we can consider ourselves lucky that even Auda brought us some points with their draw, because that was a bit unexpected. But then again, Valmiera could have at least gotten the draw second game, if not win, and that's also very unfortunate for the rankings because I was even more concerned about rankings than the teams themselves going through actually at some points because that Europa League spot, as you said, it would have been like the next level. And as you said, I think the league is ready because even though we have the two giants, it's still not like the other teams are these sort of easy teams to go over. Tukums sometimes shows their character. Jelgava as well. Metta is getting better, and actually they played against Riga recently in Virsliga. Very good game. Just a 1-0 loss. So I do agree that we need it, and next year really could be the year with another group stage. And I think if we get another group stage, then surely we break into the top 33 and get this Europa League spot, which would be really nice actually.
But that will have to wait until next year. Long wait this time. Last year we got Eurocups until well into the autumn. But such is life. Let's talk about the Latvian Cup. Things happened there as well while we were drooling over the European games. And the competition has now entered semifinals. And semifinals will take place on 20th of September. And final will be on the 25th of October. And there are 4 Virsliga teams in the semifinal. Liepāja, Riga, RFS, and cue drumroll, Tukums. What?
Yeah, it's exactly. It's a bit of a weird one because it was pretty much very very easy to predict quarterfinals, but it ended up not being that way. I guess we'll start with just game by game. First one, Liepāja against Beitar from the second tier, Nākotnes Līga. A 7-0 win for Liepāja. I think it was always quite easy to predict and confident. But Beitar is like a very mid team in the Nākotnes Līga. A lot of suspicions of them sort of engaging in some, not match fixing, but kind of match fixing. So it's just overall just not the most pleasant team. And yeah,
So you invented a new category of foul play, kinda match fixing.
yeah. Oh, I don't really know what I mean by that, but
It's like match fixing, but not really.
allegedly. uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think 7-0 was not predictable, but it just makes sense. And yeah, but also it should be pointed that Bator didn't really have their best squad, because I recently looked at some squads they've had for their uh, Aquatins League games, and they have some names which very recently played in Virsliga. Anton Skurakins has played the game for them. There's also Alexander Solovyovs, Sinelnikovs, Wojnickis, well, Alex Regge, Marco Regge's brother. So actually, some decent players in the team, and none of them played this game. So apart from Wojnickis, but yeah, it also sort of shows that it could have been maybe like a 3-0, but yeah, 7-0, easy for Liepāja. Nordanus scoring hat trick. Some other players also scoring. I don't think there's really much else to say about this. Liepāja into the semis. Good for them, because they really might need the cup win, which is again very unlikely. And yeah, that's it for that. And the other game that day was RFS against Alberts. Yeah, the FS Alberts, to be more exact, a team I used to play for actually a couple of years ago. And yeah, it was actually, well, you went to the game, and yeah,
I did.
was quite close. So you can tell more on that.
Yeah, it was a fun game. I showed up fully expecting a chill Sunday afternoon. It was a wonderful sunny day at the LNK Sporta Parks by the river Daugava on the outskirts of Riga. Just kind of a beachy mood, to be honest. If you don't want to be on a beach that's full of people, you go to the RFS game on a Sunday. It was lovely. It's a very chill vibe. Lots of foreigners attending the game, which was interesting to see. There was a large group of Brits and a similarly sized group of, I guess, Dutch tourists. I guess people coming to visit Riga and popping into games, which is fantastic. We only welcome that, and if that's something that you want to do, but are unsure about the logistics or what's what, we're very, very happy to help, and we have helped people in the past. It's no problem at all. Just hit us up on social media, Twitter or Instagram. Yeah, I mean, so expecting a very chill game, but Alberts put up a fight. They really, really have. It never seemed like the outcome is in any doubt. RFS just had it all under control, but they did manage to concede a goal. I think it was 2-0 at the time, and they conceded, went to 2-1. Game livened up a bit. RFS started playing a bit more football rather than just approaching it as, well, at least from the stands, what seemed like a training match. And Alberts didn't break. They held their own. They continued counterattacking. They were running. They were fighting. There were lots of supporters of Alberts present, and they were audible. It was just a really nice Sunday game.
Yeah, and I'd say, even though, well, all due respect to Alberts, they scored and actually made some drama for the outcome of the game. Instead, there's still a lot of questions about RFS's performance. I think they should have been easier for them, but yeah, again, it's a cup, and they did go through, and that's it. I can understand players wanting to be a bit less focused on these sort of games, but as you said, it seemed like just a lovely afternoon, decent game. Also, one of the best League clubs show what they're capable of, on comparing to the Virsliga big team. So it seemed quite decent, and yeah. So at least there's some teams from League that, if they manage to break into Virsliga, hopefully wouldn't be a very huge outsider, as Supernova is. Well, at least at the moment. But then again, I'm not sure if Supernova loses to Albert. Would be interesting match to see. But I guess we'll see how it goes towards the end of the season.
And I got a half price RFS scarf, which is nice.
Why half price?
But it was the first day of a new design being available. So I didn't know. I just really liked the one that I got. But I got it half off, just for a tenner. Met Jan, met Maxims, our guest on the Business of Virsliga guest episode. It's just really nice. Had a overpriced beer, but it's all good.
Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah. Then the next game was the shocking one, Valmiera against Tukums. In Valmiera as well, Untitled Stadium, where Tukums somehow won 1-0, beat Valmiera. Scored in the 7th or 11th minute already, so early on. Goal by Bogdan Samailovs, quite nice. Well, I would call it a long shot. And yeah, well, all respect to Tukums, because honestly, again, Valmiera had chances and definitely should have scored. I think there was even one like goal line clearance from Sidoros. But Tukums showed character and, well, for the first time in their history are playing in the semifinals. So only 2 games away from from
From Europe.
From Europe, exactly.
Right.
And but yeah,
Yeah.
again, we already talked about Valmiera, and it just shows how everything is going on over there. But fair play to Tukums, even though the season hasn't really been the best for them. There have been some good games, not so good games. But I think it's a team that even last year as well, oftentimes showed some character and played well against the bigger teams. And I don't even know if I would call Valmiera a bigger team now, because the recent results really don't show that. And I think all these losses are also sort of making a toll on them. And I think psychologically, emotionally, it's probably a tough place to be at right now, while Tukums is flying. And as I said, all respect to them, but yeah, Valmiera really have to take one big look at themselves and just think everything over, because if this keeps on happening, well, I'll comment on the Virsliga stuff later, but for now, not looking too good.
Yeah. Well, if Tukums is flying, it's very low to the ground. So let's make that disclaimer.
course.
But no, with a bunch of luck and a lot of hard work, they managed to make a little bit of history for themselves, as you said. First time ever this team made it so far in the Latvian Cup, and it's great. Obviously, once there, it's either Liepaja, Riga, or RFS, and they got, I mean, maybe historically one of the worst draws for themselves. They're gonna play RFS, and Liepaja is playing Riga, because RFS just has a nasty habit of scoring lots of goals against Tukums.
Yeah, and also, of course, it's because a lot of RFS players are loaned out to Tukums, and that's also sort of weakening their team, and that's why RFS is better against them. And it's pretty much
Not anymore, not really. Not as key players as they were in the first part of the season and last season.
Of course, that I do agree with, true, but still, I think it's just made for RFS to go to the final.
That was the long-term plan all along, at the beginning of the season. Let's loan a bunch of players out to Tukums, so then when we meet them in the semis, we don't need to worry about it.
Well, I mean, just the fact that they've drawn Tukums pretty much means a final for them.
Yeah. It seems like, obviously, not to jump the gun here, but it very much seems that we're gonna be blessed with another big Riga derby this year, which is going to be the cup final.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't think Liepaja will go through, although you never know.
Yeah, and yeah, as you said, Riga also going to the semis, beating Auda 4-0. It could have been, I think, before the game, people could have predicted a sort of tighter game, uh, more even game, but somehow, even after the European competitions, Riga didn't seem that emotionally drained. They seemed really up for it, as opposed to Auda, and just beat them 4-0. Very confident game. I think could have been even more. Some saves from Ozols in Auda's goal against his old team. But other than that, Riga just showed their game. Nice 4-0 win. I think four different goal scorers as well. I remember, and Gom scored quite a nice goal with his left foot from quite a distance. And yeah, just all went Riga's way this game, and also got to the semis where they're playing Liepaja.
And Latvian Cup is historically a highly competitive competition. So it's actually an old competition. It dates back to 1936. But even if we're talking about competition since the restoration of independence, 13 different teams lifted the cup in that period of time. So that's really nice. And interestingly, of course, Skonto Riga, as with other Latvian competitions, is one of the highest. Well, it is the team that won it the most, 8 times, and 7 times being runners-up. Interestingly, Riga only won it once, coming second twice. And one time they won it was in 2018. Then the following year, RFS won it in 2019, and then RFS won it again in 2021. Tukums obviously never been there, and Liepaja won it twice also, same as RFS, coming second once, again, so in 2017 and 2020. So of teams that are currently on the boards, there's not a lot of winners, but there are a lot of winners of the previous years. Overall, if we're thinking about teams that are still in Virsliga, I guess Jelgava is noteworthy for winning it 4 times, never coming in second, and winning it 3 times in a row, 2014, 2015, 2016, but it's not really the same Jelgava as now. And of course, Auda are the current holders, but they lost 4-0 to Riga, as you just said. Other than that, most of the teams don't even exist anymore.
I just quickly remembered sort of a fun fact about Jelgava when you mentioned not the same Jelgava. These are sort of the golden times of proper FK Jelgava, with these sort of very legendary players for them. Artis Lasdiņš, Gins Freimanis, Martis was these sort of players. And I remember a random fact when the stadium, Jelgava Stadium, next to the Olympic Center was opened, they played this sort of, well, obviously a friendly match against Blackpool from England, and they actually beat them. I just remembered this random fact, and I thought some listeners might like it who don't know this fact, that Jelgava has beaten a team which has even at some points played in the Premier League. At that time, I think they were like League One. Surely not championship. Surely not Jelgava beating a championship team, but still, that's quite an interesting fact. I'm really not sure how, if it was like the strongest Blackpool team or maybe the second team, but still a fact is that Jelgava has beaten Blackpool. So just a random fact for you.
Yeah, and now Blackpool play in
Probably League
Championship?
Oh, fair play.
I really don't know.
Sure.
But there we go. That's a cool fact. So yeah, that's the Latvian Cup. A cool competition, kind of not really getting as much attention as it deserves, I think. Maybe some better PR and marketing is due, but a historic event, and always a fun final. We don't know where it's gonna be, but yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that it is probably going to be RFS and Riga in the final, it just makes for such an exciting end of the season, because most likely at the end of the season they're still going to be quite close in the table, and the cup final also takes place very close to the end of the season. I think like 2 or 3 rounds before the end of Virsliga, and yeah, it's just going to be very interesting to see. And how far in the end is the Riga's derby in Virsliga? I don't remember, But I think the two games might be quite close to each other and both very deciding.
So the cup final is on 25th of October, and the fourth and final Virsliga Big Riga derby is on 16th of September. Oh, that's actually super soon already.
Okay, well, then
So
never mind.
then the final game between these two teams will probably be the cup final. So actually, that's 16th September. Well, I mean,
very soon.
That's interesting. That means that even if RFS win and draw on points with Riga, there's still a whole bunch of games, for teams to try to not lose points. Right? Basically, everyone has to win everyone. That's a little bit disappointing, but also interesting.
Yeah, we'll make for some interesting matches, especially when RFS face like Auda. They usually struggle a bit, and Riga, maybe Valmiera, which is I think this Saturday already. Well, it's gonna be very, very fun.
And okay, let's catch up a little bit on Virsliga. So, anything noteworthy that happened over the past 4 rounds?
Not sure. So I think Riga and RFS have won all of their 4 last games, right?
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, and then Liepāja 2 wins, 2 draws. Actually, quite decent for Liepāja. I would say out of the 3 contenders for the third place, Liepāja, Valmiera, and Auda, they're on the best form. Although mostly, as I heard, people are predicting them to come fifth and then final spot being taken by Valmiera or Auda. That's quite interesting. Yeah, Valmiera, 2 wins, lost, draw. Same for no.
And they have a game in hand.
That's also a good point. Over
against Supernova.
Yeah, and that's probably a win. So that's at least good for them. Obviously should mention Riga and RFS confidently in the top 2 spots, 3 points separating each other, and then far back, Liepāja, Valmiera Auda, their own trio, and then Metta, Jelgava, Daugavpils, Tukums, but they're quite close and not even that far off the third place trio. So that's definitely gonna be interesting. But yeah, I should mention Tukums not on the best form. 3 losses, a draw. Daugavpils also 3 losses and a win. Though Daugavpils, I must say, have been very unfortunate because they've been playing very good recently and they've mostly won against big teams and by like 1 goal only. So a bit unfortunate there. Jelgava picked up some wins and also a draw against Valmiera. That should be pointed out, which was really unsuspected. And a game after which your discounts coach of Valmiera produced another of his classical quotes. He said that during the first half, he wanted to throw up, and then after the second half, he threw up. And also, Auda drew with Tukums, and I think Tukums equalized in like the last second of the game. And then after the game, there was also a bit of a racism incident, which is always just sad to see against Manny Achol. And then I remember I listened to Edmunds Novitsky's sort of interview with him after the game, and he was just very disappointed, always repeating, "It's 2023. How can you be racist?" And then etc. He definitely seemed very hurt, and yeah, sad to see. But result-wise, a bit of a surprise maybe. But overall, Virsliga, nothing that big I think has happened. Maybe you've got something in mind.
Yeah, I mean, let's maybe a little bit flesh out the points situation. So the 2 Rigas are 3 points apart, 67 points for Riga, 64 for RFS. Then, as you said, there's a big gap between them and the following 3 teams. I think we can probably bracket it like that. Liepāja, Valmiera, Auda, that are only 3 points apart. Valmiera, of course, has pretty much a certain win in pocket still to play, but Liepāja is standing at 39 points, Valmiera 38, Auda 36, so very tight there. And then between places 6 and 9, there is only a 4-point difference as well. So 28 points for Metta, currently occupying the 6th position, 27 for Jelgava, hot on their heels, 25 Daugavpils, and 24 Tukums. So mid-table situation is extremely exciting and highly dynamic. Supernova are basically relegated at this point, 8 points and 21 loss, 2 wins and 2 draws this season, minus 59 goals scored to goals conceded difference.
Yeah, that's huge. A huge difference. And even though Supernova have actually started to play better, brought some African players in, the results are still not there, but at least they're playing a bit better. But still, I'm sure they won't catch the team. But another thing I'm thinking of, even looking at the difference between the third and ninth place, it's only a 15-point difference, which also just doesn't seem that much considering there's still 11 games to go. And I won't say Tukums is catching Liepāja, but maybe Metta could, or Realgo maybe break into the fifth spot. Who knows? Probably not, but still, it's very nice to see such closeness, and also the fact that there's still some closeness in the top two as well.
Yeah, I mean, Metta is only 8 points away from the top 5. Not that many games left, so I wouldn't be too optimistic. But if you're a Metta fan and you want to go for it, you have every reason to be optimistic that this is something that is very much not really within grasp, but not too far off. I guess another thing that's worth mentioning is RFS are still undefeated, 26 games into this season, and over a year undefeated in Virsliga in total. So I think, maybe you know exactly, but I think they now hold the record for the most undefeated, most highest amount of consecutive undefeated games ever, or like second behind probably Skonto or something.
I would be surprised if they don't hold the record. I'm not sure, but I think it should be, because even though
I think if I'm right, then they just surpassed Skonto, and obviously keep counting games because they remain undefeated still in Virsliga, but it's very, very impressive.
Yeah, the most impressive thing would be if they manage to go the whole season unbeaten and still end up second. Though that would be impressive. But
Yeah.
Also, another thing I was thinking today is that I wouldn't. Maybe it's a bit of a bold prediction, but I was thinking that I already mentioned a lot of people are sort of saying that either Valmiera or Auda will take the third or fourth spot, fourth spot in the Virsliga and again the European spot, and saying that Liepāja just doesn't look as good and sort of should be finishing fifth. And I understand because on paper I think Auda has the better team and Valmiera just as a club and everything should be better. But now looking at the sort of form and trend, Liepāja against all odds are somehow getting out these wins when they really shouldn't be doing that, and even with the squad which is not as convincing are getting the results, while Valmiera are just starting to play really bad and also emotionally down after the European competitions and Cup as well. And Auda pretty much the same. They should be getting the results, but aren't. And also after the European loss, and at this point, I can honestly see Liepāja scraping the third place, but in a very sort of dirty fashion, not playing nice football, not being tactically the best, but just somehow getting these results where they shouldn't have. Edmunds also have in his Patreon noted that a lot, that even when the XG is not really saying that they should win the game, they are winning the games and overachieving. And against Valmiera, they can produce results, and Auda as well. Of course, against the big teams, they probably won't get anything, but I think they already drew against RFS this season. So could be the case. But honestly, so far it looks good for Perty boys, and the fact that they're not playing Europe has definitely helped them this season. Let's see if it goes sort of again badly for them. Who knows? They definitely could be starting a bad run as well, seeing how they play. But for now, against all odds, Liepāja are looking good to get the third or at least the fourth place, but probably still European space.
This podcast isn't old, but I'm certainly old enough to remember us talking about this at least twice before, and every time we do, Liepa end up swapping half of their team for some new arrivals, and then they have a bout of poor form before picking up again. So I don't even know. I like seeing Liepa that high up, mainly for sentimental reasons. I like the city. I like some of the things about the club.
Nice
But
stadium.
I just I just don't know with them. It's such an unstable team this year that I'm not even, I'm gonna refrain from making any predictions again
Fair
with
enough.
respect to
Fair
Liepa.
enough.
The only thing that is, I think, for certain is that there are going to be, the top 4 positions in Virsliga are going to Europe because just to elaborate on that, if the team in top 3 also wins the cup, then the team in number 4 gets a European ticket. And since we're pretty much super certain that it's going to be the Riga derby in the cup final, that's going to be the case again. And so then top 4 are going to go to Europe, which means that there's a little bit of a little bit more fighting space in this kind of second echelon of Virsliga, that's currently Liepa, Valmiera, and Auda, to fight for European places, or I guess not get left out of Europe next season.
Yeah.
And I think Liepa are not gonna be left out. Is Valmiera going to be left out? Maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing to happen.
Maybe for the club it would be all right to have this sort of a restart year. And yeah, as you said, about the cup. So last year was sort of an outlier because Auda ended 5th in Virsliga but won the cup, so they got the place in Europe. But Liepaja finishing 4th in Virsliga didn't. And this year, yeah, Liepaja not only could be in the top 4 in Virsliga, they also still have the cup against Riga. Of course, unlikely to win, but I mean they still could, maybe just on the off chance, and against RFS in the final anything could happen. Well, Tukums is definitely not going to win it, so as you said, the 4th place is probably getting Virsliga, 99%. But yeah, just let's see who it is, and it's gonna be a very interesting battle. Maybe even Metta ends up 4th. It's unpredictable, and that's what I like to see so far in the season. Yeah, it's just nice to still have some drama even after the Europe, because usually after Europe it's a bit of an emotional downfall. But now there's a lot of things to look forward to, and I hope that keeps up to the end of the season. And I hope even the last match is very deciding of the title, and we still see a lot of people in the stands despite probably the cold weather in November. That's what at least I hope for, and I hope to see.
Yeah, it's more wet than cold in November.
Fair.
But hey, if Metta get a ticket to Europe via the number 4 position, all the people who are playing Football Manager and winning Champions League with Metta, I think they're just going to lose their minds, because this is reality happening. Metta, a club that not anymore this season, but last season was the youngest top flight team in all of Europe, with an average age of like 21 something, going into European qualifications. That's just fantastic. And now I actually now I really want to see that. Despite then there being 3 teams out of Riga going to Europe.
Yes.
I mean, that also makes travel to games easier, I suppose.
And then a European qualifier in Hansa. Oh, that's what I want to see. Of course, won't happen.
Yeah,
but
no,
imagine
it's
the
gonna be in
scenes.
Daugava or something.
Yeah, of course. But would that be the story?
Yeah, take European games to
School stadium. Yeah.
field. Yeah, school stadium. It's great.